everyone. I hope you can hear me now. That should work. Yes, my name is René Schimmer. I'm Director of Product Management for HCL Connections, and I'm joined here by Andre Hagemeyer, who's heading up our Connections development. And we will take the next 15 minutes to walk you through the Connections roadmap. So as you know, we've just released, or we are about to release, I should say. To me, it feels like we've already done it. But in early December, we will release Connections 7. So now it's time to talk about what we will do in the next step for 2021 and beyond. So let us take you through it. First of all, I really want to take a step back, and that's what we've done for the past months, weeks and months, trying to set a North Star of where we want to take Connections. So first of all, we need to take a look at the market, what has happened over the past few years, and more importantly, what has happened in the past 9 months, right? With COVID and the pandemic hitting us all, forcing us all to work from home and really reevaluating what kind of tools make an organization tick. So Connections has a long history, and we have a lot of customers who use Connections in slightly different ways. So all these use cases that you see popping up here on the screen are some that you will probably use Connections for, or you know somebody who's using it for. And these are all around the Connections ecosystem, right? You can build an intranet portal with Connections and Engagement Center, right? We have customers that use Connections for file sync and share. And to me personally, that was my first exposure many, many, many years ago, when somebody shared a file with me in Connections, and I started using it, and that's how I got hooked on Connections. And I actually left that group and joined the Connections team to work on the product. Enterprise social network to the right over there, that was always the definition of where Connections fits in the market space, and that was the category for Connections. I was kind of ready to disregard that because we found that IT departments don't really spend money on soft things, right? On touchy-feely stuff. Social isn't really something that has long legs. But here comes the pandemic and everything changes again, right? You heard it from Wayne yesterday morning. Soft factors when it comes to now people working from home, feeling connected with the organization are actually really important things that matter today because we're not in an office anymore. So the networking aspect, the availability of knowledge within the organization through digital means is getting very important again. Now, does that mean we want to, continue on just focusing on enterprise social network or workstream collaboration? No, I think, and we think there is a slight shift here that we can really leverage to make Connections unique and focus on its core strengths. So if we take all of these now out of focus and focus on the direction that we take Connections to, we think this is the enterprise community platform for the future, because everything happens better if you do it in a community. And that is what pretty much all of our customers use. That's the one combining element, right? The one thing that everybody who uses Connections does is to create communities as the pillar of how you get the people together, of how you map experts to people who are interested, so you create that dialogue. That is the centerpiece of what Connections does, and we strongly believe that there are not really many tools out there that do that as well as Connections does. There are some tools, that claim to do enterprise community management, but then if you take a closer look, you'll find it's just a glorified activity stream with a file share. That's not enough. You need to be able to create a community and flesh it out with more content, create a vibrant, engaging environment where customers and employees, more importantly, can exchange their knowledge, their expertise with other people and get people together. So this is the North Star that we will be following. Focus on making communities better, easier to set up, and the centerpiece of what Connections will do. So how does that fit into the HCL Digital Solutions portfolio? We looked at the larger market. Now let's look at our portfolio. And you've seen this slide before when you listened to Andrew and I talk yesterday about what we call Project Yuzu, the digital office. So within our portfolio, within Digital Solutions, we have four pillars here that are relevant to this discussion. We have Same Time that covers chat and meetings, right? The persistent chat, the audio-video meetings, that's not something that Connections does or will ever do. That's Same Time. We have, or working on this concept called Project Yuzu, which is all about collaborative work management. So this is probably the one where you think, well, that's kind of similar, isn't it? But no, there's one very clear distinction. This is outcome-based, extremely focused, small team working together to have meetings and chat and content persistent all together in one digital office, right? And once the outcome has been accomplished, you close it, you move on to the next project. Whereas Connections, where it's all around the community, building your network, pulling in expertise, is all around the engagement, the broader sharing of knowledge, and bringing people together, right? It's about people. Connections has always been around people and creating that engagement with your organization, with colleagues across the board. And then, of course, over on the right side, we have digital experience, which helps you set up the broader corporate identity-driven intranet and extranet portals, right? So that is yet another use case. So speaking of use cases, we'll get there after this slide here. Before we get there, I just want to reiterate what we think a community gives you. So first of all, it is the evolution from an enterprise social network to an enterprise community platform. And the community is the tool that helps you engage with your colleagues, right? You create a community, and that is where you create, discover, share content, and collaborate with experts. So you can exchange thoughts, you can develop ideas, and you'll probably get a sense here that there's a lot you can do in Connections communities, and that is true. That's where all the tools come in that Connections gives you when creating a community, right? You have a wiki to document things, even write your documentation. We have customers who write their entire documentation for procedures in wikis and then export it to PDF so you can print it out and take it to the machine floor, etc. Right? So all these tools in a community help you create that common place where people work together. So now let's look at a few use cases, and these are use cases that we hear from our customers, right? So all we're doing here is listening to our customers, understanding how they use Connections, and making sure that moving forward, we give you all the right tools to continue on this path and make the Connections environment stronger to help you do what you need to do. So you have departmental communities, right, where each department collaborates together and wants to make it easy for all the people within the department to have the latest information and then share it out to the rest of the organization. The idea here is that you speak with authority, and if you do that, users will trust the information you put out on your community for your department, right? You can have communities of interest. The fourth column here, that's another example that I know a lot of our larger customers are using in global organizations where they have engineers across the globe working on similar projects, yet not yet exactly on the same project, but they can exchange ideas by just having communities of interest where can they discuss latest technologies and basically across boundaries collaborate and drive the company forward. So a lot of good use cases here, right? Sharing knowledge is always at the center of it. Now let's see how we can actually take this forward. Our product strategy around this is laid out on this roadmap. In 6.5, we take one step back here. We focus on helping you drive end user engagement and getting new users to adopt connections easier. So touchpoint, sidebar, highlights, invite were all capabilities that we added to connections to make it easier for users to join the family of connections users. With 7, which we're releasing in about 4 weeks, we are all about integration and repeatable success. Tailored experience was one step to that enterprise community platform, right? We've always enhanced communities, and we did a lot with 7.0 in terms of introducing templates that not only push the layout, but also content. And then the whole ecosystem support for Microsoft. So I'll need to speed up a little now. What we're doing next throughout 2021, and this is where Andre will spend a moment on explaining what we do and how, is we will tackle the UX framework in order to get to the enterprise community platform and making it more efficient in creating, managing communities that are engaging and allow us to integrate more with other applications. We need to rebuild the UX framework to make it easier to use and to basically have users work with it. So this is where I'll hand it over to Andre. He can talk a little bit about how we do it. I'll skip this slide. Andre, over to you.
Sure. So I think a lot of you on the call know that we had initial plans to tackle the UX redesign as part of Connection 7.0, and that was the one thing that we couldn't do, despite 7.0 obviously being a great release. That's the one thing that we didn't contain in 7.0, and I think it's a good message that we still think it's really, really important, and we get a lot of customer and partner feedback that we're on the right track with that effort. So for the next release of Connections, we're planning to completely rebuild the UI and to make sure that we're all saying that we all have the same understanding of what that means is we're not doing a one-for-one rebuild of the current UI to a new UI. We really have our design team working closely together with offering management to understand what the most important and relevant use cases in Connections are and what those use cases, how they should be helped and surfaced through a more modern UI. So it doesn't mean that we're keeping up the visual silos that you have today between wikis, blogs, forums, files, activities, etc., but that we're thinking about the use case that a user uploads a file for the purpose of then collaboratively editing the file through docs, for example. And that flow spans multiple of those capabilities, and that's how we design them. And so we're taking a little bit of a vertical step and are redesigning the use cases, and that will, by definition, change the way, for example, our navigation looks like. That's one thing that we hear very consistently from customers is that the navigation is complicated and it takes too many clicks to get a particular thing done. And so that's sort of one of our overarching paradigms. On a technical level, we still have Dojo in the WebSphere-based connection stack, and we have React in the Kubernetes-based connection stack, and we definitely want to harmonize that. Dojo is not a state-of-the-art JavaScript framework anymore, so we're going to remove it. And one thing that I'm sure a lot of you will like to hear, that we're finally building a responsive UI that'll let us solve a lot of issues with integration, for example, into Microsoft Teams, but also with building a desktop application, having your mobile phone browser, being able to use that to navigate Connections UIs, as well as, quite frankly, removing capability from the existing native apps. Right? We hear a lot that our native apps are bloated and overloaded with functionality, and that'll give us an opportunity to take a more specific look at the use cases that you truly want to be able to do on your mobile phone versus the ones that are better suited for a desktop application. And we can only really remove those use cases from the native app if you also have the ability to solve the use case in your browser, for example. So that's what we're currently working on. We're out of time. I don't know, we don't have a way to ask questions right now, right?
Yeah, sorry. We're actually being told to really end on time. So sorry for running out of time here, but I think we got the main points across. Questions, please, the ones that were posted, we will answer them in the Meet Developer session. We can't do a Q&A now, but keep your questions, come to the Meet Developer session, and then we will answer the questions there. One last note, we won't do this alone, right? We'll work with you. We will have previews, design sessions, and we want to validate what we're doing around UX and community work. With that, I'll thank you all very much for your attendance, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you.